Hey friends, I'm Tony Corbin, publisher of School Transportation News. I want to welcome you to today's episode of the School Transportation Nation podcast. This episode is brought to you by Transfinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Today's tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, plus a special message from our friends at the Propane Education Research Council.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan Gray, Editor-in-Chief of School Transportation News.
Hey guys, I'm Taylor Hannon, Associate Editor of School Transportation News, and a little later I'll be interviewing LaShone Mosley. She's the Director of Transportation for Des Moines Public School in Iowa.
Yeah, looking forward to that, Taylor. So I want to wish both Tony and Taylor and everyone out there a happy School Bus Safety Month. September has been proclaimed that by the U.S. Senate last month. Child Safety Network really did a good job in getting the 8th annual School Bus Safety Month proclaimed for September. So with that, Child Safety Network actually is updating their website, and we posted a story on stnonline.com. You can go over and see that. We have a video of a PSA on the ramifications of illegal passing. So we all know that in the industry, very powerful video. So be sure to check that out. And speaking of technology, Tony, I think you have some updates for us on the Bus Technology Summit.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's already registered for the Bus Technology Summit. We've got over 600 people that have completed our registration survey, and they just got to check that box and register into the platform. But it's going really well, and there's a lot of people already making comments and discussing how excited they are to be in the platform and what's to come. We just put up a full schedule with speakers, an overview of times and days. You got to log in, register to see that schedule. So please do so. You can go to bustechsummit.com. We got lots going on there. We also have a super exciting live demonstration from Bendix. They're doing a technology demonstration on a track, kind of displaying the new safety technologies. Really interesting opportunity for everybody to check that out. Also, lots of other interesting discussions going on. Mr. Ryan Gray has pulled together a who's who of industry visionaries to discuss kind of where tech is going. Ryan, you want to share a little bit about who you've brought on?
Yeah, various people. I don't want to give away too much because I want people to check these folks out, and we're still finalizing a lot of the details, but really developing a lot of chat discussions, interactive networking opportunities for attendees to come on, talk with peers just like themselves, getting folks who are experienced using video and routing systems, collision mitigation technologies, and so on and so forth, to discuss where these technologies are going, discuss how student transporters are utilizing them in COVID-19. We've definitely seen over this past summer, a lot of existing technology has new uses now amid COVID-19, and certainly there are brand new things coming to market. So that's what a lot of the conversation will be. They're going to be set up as half-hour chat discussions, interactive video. People can pose questions. They can share information on what they're doing, on maybe the challenges that they're seeing in implementing technology or new challenges that have arisen to existing technology because of COVID-19. So definitely be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be some really interesting discussions.
I think what really hits the nail on the head for me is how much people are really wanting to engage with each other and kind of share the stories of school startup and lessons learned, trials and tribulations, kind of comparing notes. So this is a great place to be able to catch up with peers and really do some information sharing. Some thought leadership is going to be all around you and to kind of soak that up. But, I think everybody gleans a lot from other peers. And not every fleet is the same. Not all the conditions are the same, but there's a lot there that can be learned to better everybody's operational efficiencies, address the COVID-19 challenges, address student safety, just kind of some of the top line items people are seeing as their top challenges they're looking to solve by coming to the Bus Technology Summit. And I think this is a great opportunity for everyone to engage. It's free as well, so you can't beat the price. And if you haven't registered yet, go to bustechsummit.com, click on register. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be September 21st or the 24th. So technology also extends to new fuel types, and we have a special message from our friends at the Propane Education Research Council. So check it out.
Every school day, buses across America deliver thousands of students to their classrooms. But the ones that are fueled by propane autogas deliver so much more. Like major cost savings, with lower fuel and maintenance expenses that diesel buses can't match. Plus, lower emissions and more flexible options for refueling. When you load all those benefits into one transportation solution, you get a fleet that's ready to take on tomorrow. To learn more about the savings of propane autogas, visit propane.com.
All right. Thanks to Perk for that message. Ryan, I hear there's been an update on masks and PPE out there.
Yes. So some of you might have caught a story that NPR broke last week. Really kind of a doomsday type article screaming the headline that FEMA is cutting funding for schools in terms of providing masks. So I decided to do a deeper dive on this. And I reached out to FEMA, got some more information on their public assistance program. In essence, what happened was NPR received a leaked audio from a update that Keith Turry, who is the assistant administrator for recovery at FEMA, provided to different state and tribal government leaders as well as emergency managers, basically outlining this change in guidance. So early on in this COVID-19 experience that we've had, FEMA came out and like a lot of the government agencies started giving some initial guidance on some relief efforts, and schools were included in there. And then we've seen more money that came out with the CARES Act. The U.S. Department of Education has put up money or received money from the CARES Act. We've seen various entities. So what FEMA was basically saying was, amid FEMA's mission, which is to provide disaster recovery and not fund normal operations, they were viewing the new school year as, even though there's still a lot of response and a lot of unknowns based around the COVID-19, that the new school year would not really apply. They need to keep that money really flowing for medical relief and emergency services. So put up a story on stonline.com. You can read more about that. But when I was talking to FEMA, they mentioned to me, hey, this is not something that is happening because we're running out of money. It's just that we need to stay to the mission. There's these other programs that are available that we feel are better use of the funds. One of the things that they appointed me to was Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services, which actually has a program that's just going to be launching here early this month, here in September. They're going to start delivering up to 165 million face coverings, reusable face masks to schools, really with the goal of first addressing low-income students. With that also, they're going to be providing face masks to teachers and school staff. So actually, after we posted that story last week, FEMA actually had a press conference, and I was able to jump on, and I asked Assistant Administrator Turry about another aspect of this public assistance. And they mentioned in there, along with hospitals, first responders, that food delivery is also an eligible ongoing use of FEMA funds starting September 15th. That's when this new guidance goes into effect. So one of the things that they are getting me some information on is how schools might be able to get some of this money. And by the way, this public assistance money goes to the states, and then the school districts can then get them. Same thing with the face masks from Health and Human Services. They're going to be sending those to the states, and then schools will be getting them. But in terms of food delivery, certainly there's a lot of school buses out there that are still delivering meals to students. One thing that Assistant Administrator Turry mentioned in the press conference last week was that FEMA has already delivered over $2 billion in food assistance because of COVID-19. It's still, obviously, that's a big, big problem. And I think that's where some of the specific operations that Assistant Administrator Turry referred to in terms of would school buses be eligible to get some money for food delivery, that's where that comes in. The Brookings Institute said that 14 million children are still not getting enough to eat during this health crisis, even with the food delivery. And First Focus on Children says that a recent U.S. Department of Agricultural decision to extend waivers to school districts, allowing them to continue delivering meals to students and their families through the end of the year. So that's through December 31st. That's a good baseline, but more needs to be done. So a little bit background on that was September 1st. That's when the ability of schools to deliver these meals was set to expire. USDA went ahead and extended that through the end of the year. So there is that. It's really going to be interesting to see as we get more guidance from FEMA, what schools can expect, if they can expect to get a little bit more money for some of those operations. Because as we know, again, a lot of schools that are going to virtual, they still have to address these student needs. And a lot of that comes down to meals. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, Ryan, I'd say on the last podcast, we talked about it, and that's an excellent tip for all the school transportation operators out there to check out cross-departmental opportunities like food service, like we talked about last episode. And I think, again, this only hits the nail on the head. There are funds becoming available through these organizations. And obviously, it's a very fluid situation, and things are becoming available and moving from agency to agency. But here we are back in this food delivery model, and it's a big deal. And transportation and school transportation is a key factor in getting the delivery done. So this is a way for you guys to supplement some income and also keep your staffs busy. So highly recommend talking to your administrators about the opportunity here. It's a great one. Ryan, I really appreciate you sharing that. And another great tip comes from our friends at Zonar. They are the leader in smart fleet management. Driving a school bus is stressful, especially now. Help drivers stay safe and healthy as they resume their routes. Put a self-managed tablet in their hands so they can do their job while minimizing exposure to the virus. Student rider verification, vehicle inspections, interior sanitizations, driver health assessments, Cummins engine updates, all on one tablet. No contact with other people required. Learn more at zonarsystems.com/tablets. That's zonarsystems.com/tablets. So good news, Ryan. There's a positive update on the COVID-19 vaccine. You want to fill us in?
Yeah, well, the White House came out last week, and they're really pitching what they believe that a vaccine could be ready by October, certainly by November. Of course, what's coming up in November? The presidential elections. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But they're calling this Operation Warp Speed. Now, there's been a lot in the news lately about the Trump administration has been really anti the World Health Organization, WHO, because of what they feel has been placating China's role in this whole COVID-19 situation. So there's been a long-standing, in a lot of political circles, a long-standing feud there with WHO, WHO, and thinking that U.S. doesn't need to be involved with that. So now WHO is really driving a global vaccine effort with 100 some odd different partner countries that are involved. U.S. has said that they do not want to be a part of that, so they've extricated themselves from that. Certainly, there has been a lot of development here. I think at one point, and there's probably grown since we reported this earlier this summer, there are 150 plus vaccines being developed. We know that Russia is really fast tracking 2 vaccines that they've developed, skipping altogether human trials, which is unheard of. And China, we know, has vaccines that they're really trying to push to market. Now we hear that sounds as if there could be a vaccine or vaccines available in the near future within the next month or so. Now that worries some people because they're thinking, well, how is this effective? Is it safe? But, kind of buoying this fact was Dr. Anthony Fauci last week. He's the nation's leading infectious disease expert that a lot of us have become acclimated to over this summer and late spring. So he went on the NBC's Today Show, and he said that he thinks a vaccine should definitely be ready by the end of this calendar year. So Christmas time, before New Year's, he's thinking that a vaccine will be available. We had Dr. Alice Kuo from UCLA. She's the chief of pediatrics medicine. She was on our podcast earlier this summer. She said at the time she was hoping definitely that by the end of the year, they were going to have a vaccine. So we are seeing some positive developments around this. It's almost kind of turning into the 1960s space race, or the 2020 version, I guess, where we have all these countries just mobilizing, and it's become this competition. Really, again, it just add this to the pile of intriguing factoids and things to keep an eye on. But, also too, I think that really what's hastening this is the concern of this twindemic is what Taylor Hannon, you referred to that earlier this week, where we're seeing this conflagration of the flu and COVID-19 potentially leading to this crazy, ultra virus that could be knocking on our door. So there's a lot of fear, anxiety. I think certainly, like I said, the race is on right now. Who knows? We all could be lining up very shortly to get a vaccine. Tony, are you going to be first in line there to do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll be first in line, but I usually always get my flu shot. My mom actually called me and we were talking about getting the flu shot. She was at the doctor and the doctor basically had told her, hey, you should wait to get the flu shot till October because everyone's wearing a mask right now. So the flu virus really is kind of almost at a very minimal basis being spread. And that might also be because people aren't going to the office, schools are closed. There's just so much less human contact. So it's just an interesting thing because behavior has changed so much. Maybe the impact of the flu won't be as severe or won't be as widespread. And they also don't know what strain it's going to be, right? So I think, they always do these vaccines and it's based on they're trying to guess what is the most common thread of virus that's going to be out there. And then you vaccinate for that. But in this case, because of the low infection rate, which one is it? I'm not sure they know. So there's definitely some real world benefits, I guess, going on from wearing masks and social distancing for other viruses. But I'm sure, Taylor, you can lean in too.
I actually can't take credit for the twindemic, okay? I definitely read that somewhere, so it's not mine to take. But yeah, it's pretty scary. I mean, just COVID-19 itself, and now there's another thing to worry about.
Meanwhile, the problems that school bus contractors are having continue, especially in those places where school has gone back to virtual class, getting paid by their school districts. This has obviously been ongoing for many, many months now. We've talked about this recently here on the podcast that the start of the school year was going to be more of the same, certainly seeming that way. The New York Times had an article last week that touched on this dilemma. I think they called it, "Are the school bus wheels falling off?" I mean, God, that headline screams at us some of the issues that private industry is certainly having with still trying to get funding because, as we've talked about time and time again, their fixed costs don't just stop when they can't transport. They're definitely fighting that uphill battle. But also, too, we're seeing that it's affecting the public side as well. There's a growing number of school districts that, as they go to virtual, are laying off their school bus drivers. Taylor Hannon, you actually wrote on this topic this past week. What did you learn?
Well, it's honestly heartbreaking. I mean, talking to these school districts, it's not a decision that they want to make, right? It's essentially they're put between a rock and a hard place, and this is the decision that they have to make, and it's all based off of fiscal, right? So what I found is that Governor Jay Inslee in Washington, his proclamation, it wasn't as promising as it seemed. And we wrote about his proclamation on stnonline.com, but essentially it allowed school districts to use their current transportation funding for the ongoing of new school bus services. So that's, delivering homework, school supplies, Wi-Fi connections, and meals during ongoing school closures. But as it turns out, and what I found while talking with Edmond School District, and they're located north of Seattle in Washington, is that the proclamation doesn't provide funding for school bus drivers when students aren't riding the bus. So with virtual learning, students aren't riding the bus, right? So according to Edmond School District, right, they had to make the tough decision and lay off all of their 175 school bus drivers.
Hey, thanks for that, Taylor. Labor Day has passed. Schools are open. Some are remote. Some are on campus. Some are hybrid. One thing is certain, change and uncertainty remains high on transportation departments' lists. Yet the demands of parent communication, fewer drivers, changing schedules, and routes are huge. Transfinder's new easy-to-use browser-based Route Finder Plus and Stop Finder parent app are here to help and make your transportation department operate the best it can. Route Finder Plus and Stop Finder go together like Labor Day and barbecue. It's a perfect pair. Transfinder knows routing is at the core of what you do. Route Finder Plus will help make your job easier and your transportation department operate more effective and efficiently. Stop Finder with real-time updates to parents will keep your community informed of resource changes. Email getplus@transfinder.com to learn more. That's getplus@transfinder.com. Transfinder is here to help you with their award-winning customer service and 32 years of transportation expertise. Stay tuned for Taylor Hannon's interview of LaShone Mosley from Des Moines Public Schools.
Hi, LaShone. Thanks so much for joining us today. LaShone Mosley is the director for the largest school district in Iowa, Des Moines Public School. And she's been in the industry for 19 years, 2.5 here at Des Moines. So Iowa's kind of got an interesting situation. Some schools are going back for in-person education. Some are not. Schools have brought legal cases against the state. And amid all of this, Des Moines is going back to all virtual education, which started today, September 8th. So can you kind of provide some background, LaShone, on what's going on in your transportation operations right now?
Absolutely. Thank you, Taylor, for having me here this afternoon. In Des Moines Public Schools, we are starting up with virtual platform. What does that mean for transportation? Well, in our governor's proclamation, we are required to transport our high school students that take college credit classes to their schools. Any student with an IEP that needs in-class instructions, we are transporting those students as well as our ELL population.
Okay, awesome. And so with Iowa, it's kind of up to local decisions on what COVID-19 protocols school districts will want to implement. Can you kind of shed a little light into what Des Moines is doing?
Yes, in our buildings as well as on our school buses, everyone will be required to wear a mask. That will be our students and staff. On our buses, we are social distance, 1 student per row. And also we're loading in a staggered platform, meaning that students that get on will start at the back, load up to the front. When we get off, we'll load from the front to the back. Drivers will have extra PPE prepared for students that may not have a mask when they come to a bus. And everyone, again, will be required to wear that mask. We have gloves. We have cleaner, different types of sprays and hand sanitizer for students.
Okay. And I know you mentioned earlier that you aren't going to be doing the temperature checks before boarding. Can you talk about that decision a little bit?
Yeah, what we found is that it's not always determined by a temperature. So we decided that we will not be doing temperature checks at a bus stop. Also, if we have a student at a bus stop that parents may not be available to take that child from that stop. And so instead of creating havoc at a bus stop and putting our drivers and our staff in an uncomfortable situation, we've decided that those measures will be taken at home. Parents will follow the CDC guidelines. If there are symptomatic questions or concerns, they will not send their children to a school bus, and we will not be required to take those temperatures at a stop.
Okay. And of course, this will all be taking place once school does go back to in-person learning. So kind of in the meantime, what are your drivers doing as far as professional development at this time?
Well, we are setting aside time to do additional training from a safety standpoint, making sure that our drivers are safe, making sure they're comfortable with the work that they're doing, and also just to give them a little bit more education around the COVID. As you know, things change on a daily basis, guidelines changes on a daily basis. So we're providing additional training to make sure that our drivers are informed, educated, and prepared to do their job in a safe manner.
Okay. And I also saw that the Iowa Department of Education is allowing school districts to apply for emergency relief funds for school bus Wi-Fi routers, to help kind of bridge that digital divide being faced during virtual learning. Is that something that you guys are looking into?
I'm not sure if that's something in the injunction that we're looking to do, but again, I can't speak much to that injunction. I know from a transportation standpoint, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that our students get the level of service that they need from a transportation standpoint to get to their buildings, they get access to their education. And we're going to do that as safe as possible, of course.
And then you mentioned when we talked earlier that you guys haven't stopped the hiring or training process, and you're continuing with that, even though schools are going virtual and there's social distancing. How are you kind of doing that and making sure that it's safe?
We are still providing the training. We have a training room where we can hold up to 29 people in a virtual platform, meaning that they're staying at least 6 feet apart. So as you know, it's hard to get bus drivers. Any event that we need to pivot at any point and go back, whether it be hybrid or full instruction, we need to ensure that we have the staff to do that. And so we're going to continue to hire our drivers and make sure that they're trained and they're ready to go whenever a district makes a decision to pivot from our virtual platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always good to have, more than you need, right? Than be short.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what technology are you kind of using to help you along the way? LaShone is going to be in the Bus Technology Summit, so I know you're going to be talking about student tracking there. Can you kind of provide some background and how technology is helping you guys?
Yes, we're using GPS system that will track our ridership via the ID card. So we'll track our students as they get on and off a bus, and also our GPS system that we utilize has a parent app where our parents will be able to know when their kids got on a bus, when a student got off a bus, and that they got to their destination on time. Also, that parent apps allow parents to know when the bus is coming within 2 miles of their home. Especially in Midwest with our weather, we don't want kids sitting out at a bus stop for 20 minutes if our bus is running late. So that parent app has been very helpful for us in our weather, dealing with the conditions that we have. So yes, we'll be having that tracking piece as well.
And I'm sure it cuts down on the amount of questions parents have for you, right? Where's the bus? And now they can just use an app and can see when it comes up.
Absolutely. It cuts down a lot of the phone calls we have in the morning. And our dispatch has to filter through because they're able to see where their bus is and know how close they are to the home to send their kids out. So absolutely, that cuts down on a lot of concerns for parents.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, I just want to thank you, LaShone, for coming on and taking some time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. I know it's right in the middle of school startup, but we all appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon.
Special thanks to Taylor, Ryan, and LaShone. Great discussions today. Thanks a lot. Transfinder, Zonar, and Perk for sponsoring the podcast. Special thank you to you, our listeners. Hear all our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple, or stnpodcast.com. Subscribe, tell your friends, leave those 5-star reviews. We love those. Read up on the latest on coronavirus, school startup, and all the other great things we cover at School Transportation News at stnonline.com, and tune in next week for another episode of the School Transportation Nation.